One, two, three, four, five, big gun, keep my favorite.
What's up, nerds and nerdettes and wee little nerdlings all? It's your buddy Big John and G, the Two Gun Fiction presents Legendary Gaming.
My number 5 favorite Kickstarter game backed in 2020 by Ricoculous Games, Crazier 8's Olympus. This is by James Gray and is good for 2 to 4 players ages 13 and up and could take you 10 to 30 minutes. Now, what I really love about this game is the simplicity of it. Like so many other people, I grew up playing Uno and Crazy 8s, so I have a more than basic understanding of that game, just as I'm imagining most of you watching this also do. Now you take that idea and you mix in with it Greek mythology, something else that's fairly well known by many people, and you add them together, and that is Crazier 8's Olympus. Now this game has, and I talk about this with every single Crazier 8's game, because there are a few out there. This is the latest, but they all have the most stunning artwork I have ever seen. Every time I play the game, I feel like I'm walking through a tapestry room in a museum. I do. This just grabs you, this artwork, so much it does. Doesn't let your eyes go. Now, yes, these guys do have a good, solid track record. As I said, is another reason why I enjoyed this game, because all of the Crazier 8 games that I've played so far have been very, very entertaining. They've been a lot of fun to play. Now, I did say that there's a little bit of a, let me put it this way, there's a little bit of a twist. Not that I said that up front, but that's what I was kind of eventually getting to. Now, that's another thing that I love, absolutely adore about this game, is the kind of rules twist. So take the basic Crazy 8 rules that you have floating around in your head, and now add to that some cards are what's called an asset, and others are an event. Events get played and put at the bottom of the discard deck, and whatever the event says happens, that's what everyone does, or the one player it's aimed at, or whatever. You follow the instructions on it, and that's beautiful. But the assets, the assets stay in play, and they grant you continual bonuses. As you can see, it completely changes the strategy of a game like Crazy 8's. Now, unlike the other Crazier 8 games before it, Olympus has something that I really enjoyed, and that was this new feature with the ace cards. In this case, they're all deities, they're all Olympian gods, that the ace cards cannot be destroyed. There are cards in the game that will allow you to destroy other players' assets and get them off the table and stop racking them up. Cool abilities are screwing you over. But in this game, the aces are Olympians. They're immortals. You can't destroy them. Sure, you can manipulate them, maybe cards move them around, but you cannot destroy these cards. And that is something else that completely altered my strategy in how I play this game as compared to the others. Just like when I played the Crazier 8's Camelot, and there were cards in there that if you had certain assets out on the table, you could actually win the game without getting your hand down to 0 like you need to do in every Crazy 8's or Uno game. So there are differences, tweaks in the rules from set to set, and that's another thing that makes this great, makes me keep coming back to this series of games. This is definitely a fun family game. It's a fun game for more seasoned players as well. The game is easy to learn, and it's fast to play, fast to teach, and every single time myself and the 20-Sided Warriors, or even me and Mrs. Big G have sat down to play it, we have always had a good time with this game. And that's why it made the cut at number 5. My number 4 favorite Kickstarter game of 2020. By Jack D. Games, Adventure of D. 2nd Edition. This game by Jack Darwood is good for 1 to 3 players ages 8 and up. 25 minutes to 75 minutes, and you should finish a game out. This caught my attention from the very beginning. And every aspect up until getting the game, examining the game, playing the game, has led me to believe that I was absolutely right when I adored this because it was a Grail game. A Grail game that was out of print, that only had several hundred copies of it made to begin with, and that the players, many gamers in the community that have been hardcore gamers, serious gamers for a decade or more, remember when the original game got dropped and they couldn't get a hold of it. Even though the few reviewers that did all gave it amazing shout-outs. In fact, the only bad thing I ever heard about the 1st edition was the art. Then you couldn't get the game. That's why this has become a Grail game for many gamers. And now, with the 2nd edition, it feels good to finally have it. Now, I did say it was 10 years. Now, during this 10 years, the game designer Jack Darwood, he didn't sit on his laurels. He was following the community of players that did have this game. And he was listening to what they said, what made sense, what didn't make sense. He tried things, he tweaked things himself. He listened for 10 years from the players that were actively playing the game about what was wrong with it, what could make it better. And he did that. Every suggestion he got that made sense and played out right, he listened to the players. That's awesome. That's amazing. Now, I did say that the one bad thing that reviewers from the 1st edition did constantly talk about, which drove me a little tiring of it, actually, was the art was bad. And yes, I have seen the art from the first game, and it did put me off, that's for sure. In fact, if I didn't know anything about the 1st edition game, and I walked into a store and saw it on the shelf and saw that art, I would have passed it up. And that... that should be a sin to the gaming table, actually, because this game is so amazingly awesome. But they did. Jack Darwood got new art, better art, and but it still retains a sort of fun feel without making the art overly serious and in depth. He made it soft in a sense, but it works. It plays through because the game itself has a slight tongue-in-cheek in it. Kind of feel. It is a little silly at times on purpose. So keeping the artwork less intense, as some fantasy games do, was definitely the way to go, I think, with this. And the improved artwork does look a lot better than that 1st edition. So anyone that was bitching about that being their biggest problem with the game, I think they can keep their mouths shut about that problem now. Everything I've read and encountered about the 1st edition game in comparison to my personal experience now with the 2nd edition game, I have to tell you that it does have a completely fantastic feel. Just as everyone said originally, a completely fantastic feel of a classic, epic fantasy adventure. It pulls you into this world, into this island world that has been cursed by this necromancer. And you become part of it. The game thematically has this feel that almost comes off the table. And it makes you feel more like you're almost playing an RPG instead of a card game based on classic RPGs and the love that they inspired in the creator of the game, Jack Darwood. So listen, this is a great system. This is a great game. This plays 1 to 3 players. It's fantastic as a solo play game. It can play competitive. Unlike the original game, it can also play with a cooperative mode. So you can play this with your family. You can play this with your friends. You can play this by yourself. It's a small, tiny box. You can carry it with you anywhere. So why not? Why not have this on my list? Yeah, it definitely deserves that 4th spot. My number 3 favorite Kickstarter game of 2020. By Colossal Games, Totemic. This game by Christopher Ham is a 1 or 2 player game for ages 14 and up. It should take you about 15 to 30 minutes. Wow. First thing I gotta say is just wow over the fact that I would never have thought of a concept to base a game on like this. To base a game on the totemic theme of indigenous people, such as in the Pacific Northwest and I guess touching on the Greek Polynesians as well, the Polynesian culture, and to take this concept of the totems and add to it this very mystical, paganistic story about how all the totems are vying for their spot, which is why they're battling it out in a sense. Who would have thought of that? Right there, out of the box thinking, I got to give that thumbs up right there. It totally took me by surprise. Now, the artwork on these cards is more than beautifully thematic. They really, really zoned in on the look and the feel of certain totemic art styles. Some of the totemic art styles that are most prevalent, or have been most prevalent, I feel, in media in the past, which is what makes it so familiar when you look at it. Genius move for the art department, I think. Absolutely genius. Now, because of this, just laying the cards out and getting it set up on the table and looking at it is already, it sets the mood in your mind for the game before the game even starts. Your mind is in the game before it starts. Just because how this game is set up, how beautiful it looks, and the thought that they put into it. Now, although this game just deals with a generic deck and then specific totemic decks for each animal, it does offer a ton of different strategy packed in this little deck building game. Because as you're playing the game, you're adding to your deck from the general pool. In fact, when you start the game, your own specific totem powers aren't even in your deck, because anyone can use them. So they could come up in the drawer, and Turtle could use a Raven power at that point. I guess thematically that's because things are still being set. They're still gelling, right? The totem hasn't been completed yet. I found these rules to be very easy to learn, easy to teach. This game offers fast play. It's in a small box, easy to travel with the ability to just throw down on the table and either just play it or teach it to someone to play and be playing in moments. In fact, to keep it in company, so to speak, I would even say that because of the indigenous nature of this game, it would be a really good game as a sort of filler before your game of Western Legends. Also by Colossal Games, so I meant keeping it in-house. But any Western-themed game, this would be a great filler game to play beforehand, help get you in the mood. Maybe you're waiting for everyone to show up, and there's just two of you. Throw it down, play it. By the time you get to your main Western game, you're already in the game. Now, although this game does work very, very well as a one-player game, and I enjoy playing it as a one-player game, it does shine as a two-player head-to-head style game. Because the random draws of the random AI of the card deck is never going to match the level of even a decent player, I think. I think the AI in the deck is equal to a decent player. I don't think it's equal to a great player. So playing with someone else adds that human X factor in your challenge. But like I said, playing it solo, I've more than enjoyed that, and I'm looking forward to more. So that's why I found Totemic to be worthy of this list and its place at number 3. My number 2 favorite Kickstarter game of 2020 by Alone Editions, Way of the Samurai. This one-player / two-player / campaign game by Yosef Fari is gonna take you about 1 to 30 minutes. Yeah, you heard me right. 1 to 30 minutes. This is a quick, fast-play game, and it perfectly simulates in a card sense. Let me amend that. In the sense of a card game, this perfectly simulates an ancient samurai duel. And even the way they go down to the attack mode, where your attack is a two-part attack, First, you're sort of almost coming in with like a little bit of a feint, kind of feeling your opponent out, and then boom, you strike with the big strike. It makes it feel like you're really there. The tension that it builds up because of this, and the artwork in this game. Again, this is another game I just have to give major kudos out for that artwork. Wow! Every time I look at any of the cards from that game, the components of the game, it totally just drags me and pulls me into the world of ancient Nippon, which I don't belong in. Oh, I am too much of a modern day couch warrior for that, but for playing a game, it feels amazing. Now, I want to get back to what I just said a moment ago about it can take you 1 to 30 minutes. This game, more than any game I believe I've ever played, and I'm pretty damn sure any game I've currently played in the last few years, is probably the deadliest and the quickest deadliest game I've ever played or owned. Now, although it hasn't happened to me yet, and yes, I do mean yet, it is possible to die on the enemy's first draw. There is a card that is an automatic behead. So, yeah, the game could last actually less than a minute. Whatever amount of time. Like, if you're starting the timing of how long the game takes from the moment you start the game and not set up, it could last a drawer. Like I said, that has not happened yet. But statistically, I keep playing enough games, it will happen. And I just hope it happens on camera. I really do. Now, another thing that, to me, sounds cool, and obviously it does to a lot of other people, is the fact that the expansion that came out for this, that was on the Kickstarter, not exactly, but soon, I was going to say on the heels of, but soon after the success of Way of the Samurai, the expansion of Blood and Bushido came out, and that did even better than Way of the Samurai. I think part of the reason is Way of the Samurai is not sold in stores. It was not sold anywhere but the original Kickstarter. And the game was so awesome. It got so many great write-ups, not only from us here in Two Gun Pixie, but from everyone else. I don't think I've seen a bad review of this game from anyone yet. That it fed into itself and kind of exploded with the expansion a little bit. So it's all very cool. And I think that shows a lot of hope for the game, that both the creator of the game and the audience of the game are so into this. In fact, the Way of the Samurai Blood and Bushido, I was hoping it would get here by December, and it still might. December's only had just started, actually, when I filmed this, but I knew that it wasn't enough time for me to get enough games under the belt to find out whether it belongs in this list also. So if it does, it'll be in next year's Big Johnny G's favorite 5 Kickstarter games of 2021. We'll have to wait and see on that. But I did. Way of the Samurai, I think, earned its spot as my number 2 favorite Kickstarter of 2020. My number 1 favorite Kickstarter game of 2020. By Fundamental Games. Legends of Novus. This game by Wesley Woodbury is good for 1 to 5 players ages 12 and up, and should take you 45 to maybe 90 minutes. Now, Fundamental Games is fairly still new in the board gaming community as far as a publisher goes, but already, as far as I'm concerned, they have a great track record. From Duel of the Dragons, Dragon Combat card game that they started with, Legends of Novus, and then Die in the Dungeon, which was on Kickstarter this year, but hasn't got the backers yet, so it wasn't eligible to make this list for this year. It will be eligible for the 2021 list. But they do it. They're a great track record. Every game by them they put out, I haven't enjoyed. The 20-Sided Warriors I've enjoyed. And I've read and seen so many great reviews from other people. So right there, track record means a lot. But that doesn't make it one of my favorite Kickstarter games. That alone. Now, I couldn't. but you can combine it with everything else. Such as the fact that this game is beautifully illustrated. The board, the character cards, and the components of the game are great too. You get a character folder, and you're able to place everything down. You know exactly what you have, where it is, what hand it's on, if it's on your head, if it's a scroll in your pocket. Everything is out. Your class, any advanced class that you are, which is kind of like a kit from D&D second edition, or prestige class third edition kind of thing. Everything is on this. The artwork, the components, it all pulls everything together in such a magically beautiful way that it stands out in and of itself. This game is also, I found, easy to learn. In fact, it's not only easy to learn, it's fast to teach, I found, as well, because a lot of the things that you're doing during your turn, you don't really do. There's only certain things that you're probably going to end up doing every turn during your actions and stuff, because there's only so many things in the options that you're actually eligible to do at the moment. So that speeds up the game play, and also teaching, because as you're teaching, as you're playing, there are less things per turn that you got to try to get someone to understand. If things only happen once in a while, or can come up once in a while, it makes it smoother and easier for someone to learn the game. I also want to say that personally, I find this game to be one of the best examples of fantasy world exploration. Now, this isn't a 4X game. It not even tries to be. It doesn't pretend to be. But the fact that you are doing an overland travel across the island continent of Novus, seeking quests and adventures, is what gives it that world exploration feel to it. And I think that if Wesley had tried to make this more of a dungeon delve game, it would have failed. This whole concept being pulled together as world exploration, epic world quest system fits it perfectly. And the game overall does have a very strong sense of some of its roots. Again, in a lot of the classic role-playing games, like Dungeons and Dragons, you can definitely feel that when you play the game. And to me, that's a bonus, because I love that game. That's what I cut my teeth on, and that is still one of my favorite games. So to play a game that is going to give me a taste, a flavor of that, while being in and of itself a good game, thank you. That is a beautiful thing to give someone like me. Now, I have enjoyed this game in a multiplayer game, but I have to admit that I really do prefer it as a solo game, even though it keeps kicking my asterisks. It's true, I have a horrible track record with this game, but yet it keeps pulling me back in. I keep thinking of playing this game. I keep thinking of how I'm going to play this game. It comes to my mind, not in an obsessive sort of way, but when I'm looking at the shelf and I'm thinking about what I want to play, my eyes will always fall on it, because it's right there. And I'll think about how awesome and how fun it is. Now, because of all that, this game is going to continue to draw you into its world. You're going to look forward to playing this game. I guarantee you, the fun factor is going to be out the window. At least it has been for me and the 20-Sided Warriors. So that's my opinion, and it's also the opinion I've observed of others firsthand playing this. I really enjoyed this game, and I really do enjoy both playing it again and the thought of playing it again. I am so happy that this game was on Kickstarter. I'm so happy I got a chance to get it. This game deserves its spot as my number one favorite Kickstarter game of 2020. I'm your buddy Big Johnny G for Two Gun Pixel Presents Legendary Gaming. And my friends, I am out of here.